All right, hey everyone, this is awesome. I'm Ken Rakowski, and of course, this is Metal Mentor, where we bring one of the incredible speakers that was with us on a Saturday, and we tag them along on a Thursday so we could go after their knowledge, their wisdom, their insight, so we could elevate ourselves. And I'm honored to have him with us, and that is Mr. Sasha Strauss, one of my favorite speakers. Let me just quickly tell you how I found Sasha. Of course, he found himself a long time ago. I was searching around on LinkedIn for amazing speakers, and I wound up seeing a 3-minute conversation that Sasha was having with this audience. Almost like a TED Talk, but it wasn't. And I was in awe by how quick his message, his insightfulness was. And then as I started to follow him, I saw that from Google to just big brands would bring him in to really get them to understand the change in the way they need to be. Quick story. I brought this up before. None of you know an individual named Antonio Mercutio. None of you know who that is. Antonio Mercutio invented a device in 1855 that allowed you to basically sing through a tube to a device that sat in the middle. And this device in the middle allowed the other side of the tube to broadcast that singing. Well, if you would stop singing, the device would break and you would have to go back and fix the device. And it took hours and hours to fix the device so you again could sing through the tube to get the sound to the other side of the room. Antonio Mercutio realized that there was no reason to have this. So he mothballed it, scrapped it, hibernated it. 15 years later, somebody took that device and had exactly the same output. He made the device to scale to exact specs. You would sing on one side, you would hear it on the other side. If you would do anything other than singing, it would stop working. And then he went through the device and he found one little screw that he turned a quarter of a turn. And that quarter of a turn allowed that device to turn into, well, the guy's name was Alexander Graham Bell, to the telephone. So I think that most of the things we do require a quarter of a turn to have success. That's all it takes. So most of us already have the device, being us, ready to go. We just need to know what that quarter of a turn more is to transform us. And Sasha is all around that quarter of a turn. He does it for big brands and individuals, and I'm honored to have him here. Sasha, first, can you connect with that scenario?
Yeah, well, I guess I like to think that any idea is just a communication away from understanding. And so whether you call it a quarter of a turn or a alternate reflection or holding up a mirror, whatever that sort of change of insight might come from, yes, I agree. And that's, I think, why I enjoy metal peeps.
I appreciate that.
They get it. They're looking for that leverage.
They are. And this is what the deal is, guys. Question, comment, idea right inside the chat. I want you to put what your question is. I'm going to unmute you, and then you can ask that question to Sasha. So Sasha, I'm going to actually start with our first question. And that is, during this downtime, you gave a great presentation on Saturday. And obviously that presentation is something you thought out, you put together. How do you actually apply that to businesses? When you walk into any business that is 3 or 4 or 5 individuals, how do you inspire them to say, take advantage of this time, as opposed to wait for this time to pass?
So I was just taking notes on what you're asking. You kind of asked me 2 questions, actually, which is, one, how am I prepared? How have I been preparing during this time? And then what is it that I'm preparing them for? And your assertion was that to take advantage of this opportunity. So I actually want to separate the 2 because I think it'll really make sense in the end why they're worthy of each other, but dependent, not necessarily codependent. Is that fair? Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so during the downtime, to be productive, the first thing that I did is I self-reflected and asked, what is it that I do professionally? Compartmentalize that. And how are those professions by nature going to evolve because of this experience that we're all having? And I did it in a free flow way where there was no judgment on what the interpretation was. It wasn't like, do I know enough about that topic? It was just a reflection of the value that I create in the world. And then by giving myself the permission to evaluate those roles, then I could reconstitute my product. So just for the sake of everyone on the call, and I'm sorry that it may be annoying to hear this, but I only do brand strategy, and I only do it in 3 ways. I teach it in class, I speak about it, and I run a company, right? So that 1/3 of speaking, that traveling the world every week trying to deliver thought leadership, is changed forever, and not only changed forever, but I think for the better. We're going to be able to have more knowledge shared more often from thought leaders to the far reaches of the planet, and it's kind of inspirational. So to your question, honestly, Ken, you asked me kind of during this downtime, what is it that I decided to do? Well, I suspected, like all of you probably, that from the minute that it was true that was happening, there's all this new information, new understanding. People in corporate finance are theorizing, people in HR are theorizing. And so I put almost a requirement, almost a weekly requirement of myself out there, which was latch on to all of these content streams and just try to make sure that whatever you're looking at, whatever client program, whatever coworker or family initiative you're looking at, you're bringing insight from all of these insight leaders sharing in this incredible format. So I say all that because back to your question, Ken, at the beginning of all this, I said, Sasha, don't be mean to yourself and expect yourself to move through a series of weeks and have understandings after moving through it. Give yourself the permission to mark down, note, scrapbook, whatever, and worry about the understanding later. That's my big answer to you, Ken, is that I decided I was going to worry about the understanding later. And so you suspect that gave me the freedom to intake whatever subject, economy, philosophy, religion, whatever it was, intake it and not have to necessarily understand it. I gave myself a homework assignment to contemplate it later. So part of my practice during this time was collect information, organize information, but don't necessarily comprehend or contemplate information until you set the time aside to do just that. Because if you do it in the frenetic, like between Zoom business, you're really not understanding it. And Ken, I don't play your fiddle. We're friends and I like you because of who you are. I know that when you're preparing your content to share with all of us, you're ingesting it and processing it, and you're processing it over time so that you actually understand it and don't have to necessarily remember the script, right? Right. So I'm not as smart as you are, so I have to take note on it, and I'm not as practiced, radio man. So I have to take note on it. But to get to how I prepared for Saturday, for our metal experience on Saturday, selected the nodes that I thought were going to make the most sense, drew out cards to add color, content, commentary to it, and then I just played them out. As you would suspect, before metal, I was going through the cards here in front of me. The night before, I did a verbal walkthrough for myself. All of that to just ensure that when I showed up that I was ready to be fully present.
I like what you said. You allow the flow to happen. Because in an office environment, we have processes, be in by 9, got to get your coffee at this, those processes are out the window. So you actually are creating your own new template by flow.
Well, yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm perfect at it, man. I'm dropping the ball constantly on stuff, but I absolutely have forced a new routine into my content management, content contemplation, and creation. I'll tell you what triggered me, to tell you the truth. I was coaching a graduate student at UCLA Anderson. Part of my role at UCLA Anderson is that I do private one-on-one coaching with the select executive MBAs in the program. And as I was walking through the conversation with this person, this is a very famous screenwriter. His whole persona was, okay, cool, Sasha, let's work on this brand strategy. But I'm gonna wait. It's gonna be an after Corona brand strategy. Like, I'm going to sell this script, I'm going to sell this story, but I'm going to wait till we can get back in the room and, do what I do in selling my authorship. And, it shook me to the core because it was my responsibility as the professor. I was like, all right, I'm going to jump on that grenade. I'm sorry, I'm out of protocol here, but the next script you're going to sell is through this. Like, whoop, here you go. So get on your shit, stop. I don't want to see the trash can in your background, organize yourself, get your lighting right, and be someone who understands the delivery of the content. And to say that that was an understatement. It's completely converted the way that his 40-person company runs their business now. You know, it's just like a completely different angle, because they were willing to understand that, okay, we don't know what the other end looks like, but that doesn't mean we don't get to debate, you know, whether we evolve or not now. If you're not evolving, then you're really wasting the opportunity.
You're right. Let's go after some questions first. Harry, your question for Mr. Strauss.
Thanks, Ken. Hey, Sasha, and first of all, I love the way you present. I love your doodles. That's fantastic, and it helps the creative process. But I've got a lot of my clients in the casino industry and the hotels who are in deeper trouble than even the casinos. They're starting to open up different levels in different states, and they're asking me, should we be marketing to our top 20% that spend the most money with us, or should we be reaching out to a broader audience with these new protocols that are happening? Do you have any thoughts on that? Should they,
Wow.
you know, where should they be focused? Because what you said Saturday too was things are going to change. It could expand and contract, and there'll be a lot of change happening probably in the next couple of months.
Yes. Thank you, Harry. So, wow. Okay, great. So here we go. Harry and Co's collective, all of those casino folks, their question is, do I let in my whales or do I let in, you know, the gen pop, get the general population running through there? Which of them do I let in first? And so here's what a brand strategist would do, would be like, well, what are the health code governances that are going to define who you bring in anyway? And so if the health code governances for the next 12 months are going to say this number of people in this number of spaces, then I wouldn't choose person based on wealth. I would choose them based on optimization for the space I have to render. You know, like that would be the question I would ask. Harry, hit me back on that.
That's an interesting take. I like that. Because part of the problem here is there's sort of the locals that come in. Some spend a lot, some don't spend much. Some do a lot of the ancillary stuff like, you know, dining, golfing. And then there's the travel from outside, you know, the drive market. And that's where a lot of their wells come from.
Yes.
So, you know, they've got markets happening from different, but that's going to give me a lot to think about on what this new world is going to look. I don't know if you saw what Wynn is doing in Vegas, and even Cosmopolitan made their parking free, which I think was a smart idea. I think more people are going to park there, and then they go into the casino. But thinking about the market that's going to be more conducive to these new protocols is a smart approach.
So for example, any strategy like free parking or comps, that you'll never be able to win that game. So maybe they're required, but you don't get to talk about it like, look at this good stuff we're doing. You have to be novel about the approach. Otherwise, you're just going to sound like everyone trying to get people to come back and sleep in their beds. So I love this. Okay, so you've got your locals. And again, I don't care if they're the poor or the wealthy. There are locals, and there's a kind of, you can count on them for certain things. Okay, cool. So of all the spaces I have to share, how can I monetize the people who will come back at frequency if I make them feel safe, they feel understood, and the space doesn't, you know, detract from the environment that is conducive to being, you know, casino is about overstimuli. So if it's so spaced out, you imagine that it would detract from the repetitious behavior that they're accustomed to acting on. So again, I don't care if they're local, I don't care if they're wealthy, I don't care what the case might be. I would identify the spaces that you can run your health code protocol through, and then decide, all right, one, who can I count on showing up, you know, free parking or not? But two, who will post about it on the internet? That's, you can't, I mean, that should be the number 2 vector, honestly. In fact, how you choose your whales is based on the whales who share the most or post the most. And that's free, instant information that you can get right now. Google them, you know, go into their Instagrams or whatever. And because you are absolutely going to need all of them to tell the world how comfortable it is back home at the casino.
I just want to say, in Indonesia, when you go to a restaurant, they ask your Instagram handle for reservations. They don't say, what's your name? They go, what's your IG handle? And what they do is they check to see if you're verified and what your engagement is. And when you sit down, they give you different treatment based upon it. Blew my mind. Indonesia is like so ahead of the game on this. But you're right. The whales are also your engagement engine. How well? What a great concept.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Do you have a microphone anywhere near you, Sasha? Because I'd like you to drop it real quick. Can you drop the mic, please? No. Harry, good stuff.
I was like, is my mic not working?
No.
Fantastic
Oh,
stuff.
I get the joke. Yeah.
I get it. Let's go over to Nick. Mr. Bishop, what's your question for Mr. Strauss?
Firstly, let me just say, Saturday was fucking awesome. And when I got the video yesterday from Metal, I shared it with 15 of my friends and I said, this is why you guys should join Metal.
Yeah.
It was outstanding. So that's the headline. 2 questions completely unrelated to each other, and they're generic questions. One is, as a brand strategist, how do you define brand strategy? And the second question is, what are your clients asking you to do for them right now, as opposed to what they were doing before? What's the post-COVID brief? Make sense?
Yes. Okay, cool. So what do you want to do first? Do you want to do clarity around brand strategy, or do you want to talk about what our clients are doing to convert their behaviors?
Your definition of brand strategy.
Okay, perfect. Then everyone listening, I'm going to ask for about 2 minutes. 2 minutes of just stream of explanation, and I think it'll be worth it in the end, okay? So the question that I was just asked by Nick is, what is brand strategy? And your natural response is, oh, isn't that under the umbrella of marketing? And technically, yes, marketing is the general concept, but let me make you smarter about it, okay? There are 3 ways to get your message to market. You can do advertising. Advertising is the repetitive, short burst where you're just trying to get the market to be like, oh, you exist. And you would imagine that for every 1,000 people you poke, one of them might be like, oh yeah, I'm hungry, thank you, okay? Once you have introduced yourself, advertising, inevitably that one who clicks over is going to want more information. They're going to want to read about you, watch videos about you, come to your conference, whatever. And that's what marketing truly is. Marketing is explanatory. It's not go poke people to get them to kind of act on us. Now, granted, there are ambiguities between these terms. I'm giving you the fundamentalist factoring so you could just understand the difference. You can bleed them together as you'd like, but back to the question, Nick. So advertising is your action to introduce yourself. Hi, you've never heard of me before. Here's what I do. And remember, you got to do it 7 times to the same person before they even remember. And that's the nature of advertising, is it's short repetitious broadcast. So again, someone raises their hand, they're like, Nick, I want what you sell. Tell me more. Ding. Now they're in marketing. Okay. And in the marketing funnel, your experiences are deeper. There's more information. And that's honestly where things like Instagram might fall, or your website might fall. It's like, oh, people who want to read more, see more, know more. Perfect. Now, why do you want people to see more, know more, engage more? Because you eventually want them to buy, join, donate, whatever. And that's when they move into the next quadrant, which is they're your public. Okay, so advertising, you introduce yourself. Marketing, you explained yourself. Now this audience is like, thank you, I'm in, I want to work for you, I want to own a share, etc.
50 people that came to this meeting.
Oh,
sorry guys.
Keep going. That's okay, perfect.
Go ahead.
With that public, that third group, that public, you owe it to them to stay engaged with them. You want to have a reoccurring dialogue with your investors, with your talent, right? That's investor relations, public relations. So if advertising introduced and marketing explained, then public relations is the continued dialogue that keeps people invested in the organization, keeps people connected to the organization. Now, I'll ask you a really direct question, which is, imagine if someone advertised to you and they sounded like a blue triangle. Blue triangle, blue triangle, blue triangle, and you're like, okay, I'm sort of interested. You get into you get to their website and they speak like a red circle. Red circle, red circle, you get the point.
Yep.
When it goes from blue square to red triangle to yellow circle, that inconsistency becomes a burden.
Yep.
So the question, Nick, is how do you synchronize all of those communications so that they have a enduring impact? So each ad adds value to your employer relations, which adds value to your marketing funnel. And that comes down to brand strategy. And brand strategy is research and analysis, and strategic communications, how you name things, how you message things, how you speak as an executive, etc. But you're doing it constantly with research and categorical analysis, competitive analysis, consumer analysis, so that when you speak as an executive or engage your consumer as a thought leader, you're actually doing so with basis. And that's why that brand strategy so powerfully impacts introductions, explanations, and relations in that model. Sorry, that was 3 minutes.
It was perfect. It was perfect. And just so you know, I own a business in and around engagement called Engagementing, and I'm a brand guy, but I just wanted to hear, because I was so impressed with you on Saturday, I just wanted to hear your definition of the way you present it.
Thank you so much, Nick. Can I answer your second question, or should I continue?
Is that all right, Ken?
Go for it.
I'll remind you all, the question was specifically about what are my clients, what are my global brand clients asking us to do now to comply with the times? Yeah? Right, Nick?
Correct.
Okay. Number one request. How do I take my trade show whole investment, the annual face-to-face exposure with my core customer? Now, if you're a nonprofits, that might be your annual gala dinner. And if you're, an education institution, it might be, your curriculum. But the point simply is the big question for all categories is how do I take my annual or semi-annual gathering and internal and external gatherings? So my all hands meeting and my investor conference. Okay, how do we create an experience that is tolerable? Because we don't get to lock these people into a screen for 9 hours and say, listen to a popping head talk. So that's the conversion from trade show to, by the way, not a virtual, not a VR experience. We're talking about something like this that feels engaging and worth experiencing.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, let's go to Alex. Alex, what's your question for Sasha? Trying to unmute you, buddy. Come on, Alex.
Okay.
Let me unmute you. There you go. What's your question?
I was talking about really where we are on the first point you made, Sasha, which is about just the way we now start to communicate and market in this way with our brands. I've been blown away by just the way we have used, Zoom and other mediums like that over the last few weeks to start talking to customers. I've spoken to more customers in the last 8 weeks than I probably have in the last 8 months, just by really connecting through this medium. And to me, what's blown me away was I like it. I enjoy it. I love being with people, obviously, but it's just been a much more of a connection than I ever thought that you would have a personal connection. Whether you're with one person, 5 people, or even on Saturdays we see with 300 people. So I would just love to get your thoughts on how you think we're going to use that more, because I do a lot of trade shows, and I'm really starting to evaluate to what extent that's worth it, compared to the more personal side.
Cool. So 3 things for your question. So one thing that is important is when you're talking to 8 times more customers in a period of a week than you were in the old manner, even if this is half as efficient, it's a return. But I really want to help you govern though. When we come back to some regular behavior, I don't want you to be like, is it going to be the old way or is it an entirely new way? The answer is it's going to be a hybrid way. So you get to also work from home and also go to an office once in a while. You're also going to have to show up at some customer experiences, but it's not going to be the old, like, how do we swap spit stuff? It's going to be like, or you're over there and I'm over here and we're not going to eat steak, and so inevitably I want you to put together a sort of a hybrid model, one that engages core customers and meets them where they're at. So that's where I want to add another component to your X factor here is not only do I want you to consider a hybrid model, but we're only going to be able to consume so much of this digital content. You get that already, right? We were already done with email. I mean, forget it. And then we were like, oh, all these tools like Teams and chat. Oh my God, I'm already done with that. But what's important is that the physical experiences that we're going to have over the next 8 months are going to be extremely elevated impact experiences. And so things like direct mail, sending a select group of customers a high profile, high value package. I have a client that has started a wine club where each of the key clients gets a $1,000 case of wine a month. And then they have a weekly wine tasting program for the 12 clients in that rollout where sommelier kind of walks them through each of the wines. They all taste them together and reflect in the screen. Now, that $1,000 sounds audacious in real life, but not when you're saving $650,000 in trade show costs a year, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So hybrid answer to your question, Alex.
Sasha Strauss is with us. Hey guys, you got a question, please put it inside the chat. And from there, I'll unmute you because we got a lot of questions and I want to make sure we go through them all. Don't raise your hand, just ask the question inside the chat. And by the way, it's great to see all these people from around the world that are joining us. It really is. Let me go to Stephen in Pennsylvania. Stephen, what's your question for Sasha?
Hey, Sasha, when you're launching a brand new product, what do you think is the most important thing to do when you're bringing a brand new product to market?
Cool. Thank you, Stephen. In fact, my answer would be forever, not just during COVID. And the answer is that humans as an organism are innately fearful of anything they haven't seen or experienced before. Think why an elephant jumps at the sight of a mouse. In theory, they don't really, but remember like when we were kids. So why did the elephant jump? The elephant jumped only because it never had seen a mouse. Okay, so that's a real problem when it comes to brands. And there's some, I understand, there's like some sexual thing about like being uber like stealth and then just like pop, here we are. And it turns out that that's like, I have a hard time pointing at a brand that has done well doing that. So Stephen, I'd like you to kind of look for, this is gonna sound so stupid, but a hybrid answer to your question, which is yes, have a big reveal, but have micro reveals to select influential audiences. For example, I never roll out a brand inside an organization outside an organization without training the sales force inside the brand about how to use it, speak to it, reflect on it, right? So when we're launching a new product for any of our clients with portfolios, we'll actually have like a 6 or 7 month program where we're talking to analysts a little bit about it, et cetera. So that way when it shows up, there's already an adjacent audience, familiar, excited, with feedback, et cetera, so that the launch feels validated. Not just like original, validated, that it should be here and there are already people who believe. And that's the big challenge with launching a virgin brand, is that you really absolutely need some tailwind, some confluence that elevates the launch to more than just a reveal.
It makes sense, Stephen?
Yeah, fantastic. I've been doing that. So just let me know that I'm on the right track. Thanks a million.
Yeah, man. Now I want you to take a prism. I want you to take all of the energy that you've been blasting at getting audiences familiar, and I want you to hit it with a prism. And I want you to find adjacent communities that wouldn't necessarily be related or familiar, but may in fact choose to talk about this. You got to remember that all of the search engine algorithms, they actually count your interlinks as much or more than they count your own like statements about yourself. And so go get some like random, I don't know what you make, so just excuse me, but like if you've got a food product, why not try to get into a travel blog, a travel chat, an Instagram partner post. Come up with some like third rung communities just to add sort of nodes of trail and evidence that your launch is interesting and relevant and worth discussing. And that can be in the form of an interview. It can be form of a series of content reflections, Reddit, Ask Me Anything, and as long as those like stepping stones exist, the launch will be a much more stable experience for all the newcomers.
Thank you, Stephen. Let's go over to Ira. Ira, your question for Sasha.
Hey, Sasha, thanks so much. These are like nuggets of gold. I mean, I'm really finding myself seeing a perspective that I haven't been privy to, but I know exists. And when I think about the journey that I'm currently on, which is I've been in the entertainment industry for 15 years, and I'm pivoting my business to include ways to monetize some of these names, these brands, individuals who may not be able to go into production right now, or they may not be able to go on tour right now, but they have a platform of people listening to them. And so I've made a deal with a merchandising company. I've got a partner with whom I work on that. And when I'm learning literally in the doing every day, which is why I'm so happy to hear from you, is that ultimately you're confirming a lot of my suspicions that when we look at a name, let's just say like a 6 million following type of star in the music industry, that it's really important for me to be looking at it. This is what I want to just get a sense if you can validate this. It seems to me to be really important to identify where that star, based on the business model that I'm working on, is going to be passionate enough to do the work of making the posts so that they connect with the audiences that are the most loyal to their following, that then result in the transmission of energy towards the nonprofit that's the beneficiary of this relationship that we've set up. So this is the sense that I'm getting, and there's a lot of details within that, but just suffice it to say that you're confirming a lot of what I think is true. And I really appreciate that. So I don't really have a question, but if any questions come out of what I just shared with you that maybe like are not ringing true or would like to hear more about, I'd be happy to.
Well, Ira, I appreciate that, you know, when you thought about your platform approach to talent, and I have to apologize, you know, I'm not an entertainment specialist, so I'm just going to use terms inappropriately here. But when you talked about the kind of platform deals you're putting together for your talent, I love that the first thing you thought of was merch. Because I know that the economy is being stretched, but a part of the economy is being stretched. The people who haven't been buying coffees 7 times a week for the last 2 months have capital to spend, and they're not going to spend on entirely new things. They're going to spend on equities and trusted assets, so that in case there's another COVID, or they'll finally get what it is that they cared and wanted so deeply for. So I love that your contract is like leaning towards merch. But what I can say, just as a couple reflections here, is, you know, you ask yourself, like, well, how do I partner the talent with an initiative or a business that they'll work hard for? And you hit it on the head. I mean, the only answer is that it has to trigger them. It has to just like piss them off, inspire them, remind them of some experience they had when they were a kid. So that's why, like, a psychological catharsis, an experience of revelation, often helps talent come up with their best work, is because, oh my God, I realized when I was 11 and I stubbed my toe on that river, you know, this happened. And then you plug that into, we got to get kids outdoors. You're right, talent. Everyone's got to go stub their toe at the river. And then that talent is like, you don't even have to call them, they're in, right? So in business, just Ira, for point of reference, you cannot be a corporation now. You cannot be a business if you aren't doing some good, right? You see that a lot of these companies are like, oh, we make masks. Let's see what you do after this, okay, please. But the point simply is this: when it comes to the business of doing business in a post-COVID era, is that if your business is not doing something good for the world, I won't do business with you. And so corporate social responsibility is going to have a whole new meaning. It used to be nice to have, now it's required. You hear about funds like BlackRock being like, well, we won't invest in you unless you have a CSR strategy. And so, Ira, you tell us, is every talent you're interacting with, do they understand that if they do not have a CSR, save the world thing that they care about, that they won't be in business for the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back 10 years ago when I launched the CSR business model with Adrian Grenier, and we raised a significant amount of money to do that, that was when we were selling a platform to brands to be able to have a portion of their marketing budget go towards CSR. And then I witnessed over the last 10 years, especially while working with a company called 3 Black Dot that's at the forefront of influencer marketing, that brands that are launching today need to have some sort of give back component to their very business model. And Tom started it, of course, back about 8 years ago or so. And now what we're looking at is, if your business has the capacity to generate enough energy that can also make money for the stakeholders involved, it should also benefit humanity. And so I think that, like, CSR is almost becoming an antiquated term in marketing. I know that, you know, you being in marketing, you probably still have to use a lot of those terms when it comes to dealing with like CMOs and so forth. And I still have to bring it up as well. But I feel like we're beyond CSR at this point.
Can I give you a real quick phrase?
Yeah.
This is not about giving back. This is about giving forward. It's not about like, oh, okay, cool, we've done really well. Like, okay, cool, we'll help people. It's got to be like, no, we're doing our work and we're helping people. We're doing our work and we're helping people. 2 parallel paths, equally as important and equally as a part of the way that my company works.
That's cool. I like that.
Thank
Keep
you.
it forward. Thank you, Ira. Hey, by the way, Ira, I'm chatting with our mutual friend in Atlanta right now.
Who's that? Oh, really?
Chatting with him right now. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay.
Let's go over to Peter. Peter, where's our buddy Peter? Come on, Peter. There he is. Hey, Peter, your question for Sasha. By the way, Sasha, thank you again for making time for us. It's a big deal.
Yeah. So our company has been profiling ourselves as a quality product, not so much a cost saver, even though we have always been saving our customers money. It's kind of a commodity product for businesses. But doing this whole thing, since we are able to save customers money, we are talking about pivoting our branding and marketing towards being a cost saver rather than a quality product. What's your thoughts on that, and what would your approach be to that?
You can't do either of those things. You can't. Yeah, cost saver or most quality are not. Those aren't identities. I mean, you can be both too. You could be quality and cheap. You know, I mean, I don't know. And so that's the point, is that you just took a foreign plug and like stuck it in, and we're just like, wait, I don't know what you mean by either of those things. I give you permission to have one of the characteristics of your offering be that it is cost efficient, but that can't be the reason I love you.
Well, so my thoughts on that is really that I know there's a lot of businesses right now trying to slice the cost on some of the commodities that they use. We do phone service, right? So that's one thing is it's a pretty big bill for most of our customers, and at the same time it's something, you know, that's very easy to cut cost on. So I'm thinking there'll be a lot of business for us to be picked up over the next 6 months. But what would your approach to be to kind of go after that? I guess that's more the question.
You know, I just do not know anything about your business. You made a point of reference to a phone service, so I have to just I'm shooting blind here, dude. But let's see what happens. Okay, so the fundamental question you're asking is, if we can't be about cost, what can we be about? Okay. And the only answer is that whether that you make the product in a certain way, it comes together in a type of service, you offer plans or whatever that comes after the fact, it's the stitching together of those things that you should be thinking about, okay? So I'll give you quality, I'll give you price, I'll give you service, I'll give you, okay, great. Now, what's the common center? What runs through all of those assets to create a frequency that only you resonate? And that's the question you should be spending your time on.
That was rock solid. Thanks a lot, Peter. Appreciate it. Hey guys, we're talking to Sasha Strauss, Innovation Protocol. He's based in Los Angeles, California. He teaches at 3 different universities. He also speaks all over the world. I highly recommend go checking out his LinkedIn. Is LinkedIn your primary point where people should connect with you? Is LinkedIn?
Well, yes, thank you. I do use a few platforms, like for example, Twitter is pretty one-directional, but LinkedIn, it's bi-directional. Instagram, I keep for family, friends, graduate students, and such like that. But yes, LinkedIn.
It's just amazing how LinkedIn's really, it's becoming the
new era. New era.
I'd rather be in LinkedIn than Facebook now. There's more value and there's less bitching.
Yeah, we're also both in business, don't forget. And some of that bitching helps people feel like they're understood. So I wouldn't write off Facebook. There's a place for it in the world. But when you have other things to accomplish, it seems to be happening on LinkedIn. Got it.
Let's go over to, I think, Reno. Reno, who's joining us. He is in Munich, Germany. Hey, Reno. I'm trying to mute you. Maybe you're sleeping. No, you're not.
Hey, how's it going? No, I'm in Berlin.
You're in Berlin. That's right. What's going on in Berlin?
It's late here, but I'm really interested in listening to Sasha and listening to the brand part. We're doing a brand pivot as well. So it was interesting to see looking at the values and things. So it was really great. Thank you, Sasha, for that.
Explain when you say brand pivot, because you're doing it for a very specific company who just laid off a ton of people. Why don't you explain the brand and what kind of pivot you're going after?
Yeah, so I'm part of Uber's Middle East division. It's based in Berlin. I head up the R&D for this. And as you know, COVID hit the business around 80%. We just had 2 massive layoffs that hit the news. But the key thing we're trying to do now is really focus on brand, on trust and safety. So the key area of having everyone wear masks, having sanitizers and different things. So we have to readjust our value, the values that we go into this post or this COVID world right now. So we're trying to look at how do we position the brand and reposition the values there for our users, because now there's big concern with cost, obviously one, and then trust and safety. I don't work in the brand department, but I know this is a key point because we have to relate to different customers that think now safety and other values and giving, I think you used the term, Sasha, of just giving back on social, I forgot the term, but being socially forward or social responsibility, right? That's a key point now. I'm building much greater sense of community than we did before, and that's a big focus. So it was interesting hearing you, Sasha, go through those components now and how you position and brand and really centered around your values. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Reno. Well, so let's all try to contemplate together, and maybe I'm going to unlock a discussion rather than come up with the answer. But so let's process Uber's situation and think about what it means to come back. And the first thing we come back with is trust us for clean. It's not wrong, but it's not most right. And what we all owe Reno now is an example of what would be most right. Who has an answer other than cleanliness, which maybe much like the previous conversation with Peter, maybe that's a characteristic, but I think there needs to be others. Otherwise, I'm just going to be smelling the cleaning solvent and using that to decide if I like you.
I find what Uber is going through right now is actually not just a pivot, but a new position. Because when we think of Uber, we thought about transport, commuting together, where Lyft tried to go there, and that is we're in this together, because Lyft wanted you to sit in the front seat, fist bump and all that. Uber wanted to become more connected, and now Uber's become that point to where wherever it is, we'll get it to where it needs to be. Your food, look at Gojek or Grab or these transportation mechanisms outside the United States and how they've actually changed. I mean, Gojek is probably one of the most unique because it's you want your massage from there to come to you. You want your prescription to go from there to you. It's all around literally, we're a transport company, but it's transporting what? Yeah. Uber's, boy, you guys have a big battle.
Yeah.
Because, you think so, Sasha?
Yeah, I mean, Reno would tell us the truth, so my reflection is worth nothing. But let's just imagine that the logistics solution that is Uber, move A to B, that logistics solution is going to be foundational to our next phase. It's going to be just the only way anything gets done. Why? Because we need to track where people have come and gone in case there's an outbreak.
Yeah.
So you can't go back to general situation. We need to go to tracked situation. And so Uber can play a very interesting role. And I think this could probably be part of your CSR answer, Reno, which is consumers do not like it when their apps collect personal data. Now we know Uber is collecting personal data, but to assert we're also going to collect basically health data, that feels dangerous and awkward. And so Uber could probably bifurcate their data at a point where it provides the tool to the health system to manage the tracking, but it doesn't get attached to your profile or something in the way that makes you feel like your personal life has been violated. And that kind of behavior, not only could Uber figure out how to do, but it could help other organizations do it. And so, Reno, the big ask I have for you is to do exactly what Volvo did in the 1960s or 70s. They invented the 3-point seatbelt. Everyone used to have just two points at the hip, right? Yeah. So instead of keeping it for themselves, they gave it to everyone else. And for the next 40 years, they were the safest car company in the world, despite that not being true.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'm unmuted or not, but
no, you're up.
I think this. Okay, great, fantastic. So this goes into extension of this contact tracing that Apple and Google just did. And if we were able to, I run the platform, the marketplace that we're pivoting to deliveries. So it's a triple side marketplace, but the contact tracing, because of the data that we have, we're able to unlock or give kind of a safety score to someone to make sure that they're getting into a car that the driver is certified safe, and also protects the driver here. And we could kind of do that contact tracing to see where you've kind of interacted with, and for anyone else came to the car that might have been exposed to someone else, we could actually give a score, a safety score to that.
So
but we also need to gain the permission of the user,
yes.
and just it's an opt-in that you see, and that's an extension of that, but we can do that because we do have the data.
Great. So, Reno, the only way that you're going to get consumers, enough of them to opt in to get data that is really meaningful is, again, it can't be, oh, Uber, that monolith, it spent some money, it built some algorithm, and it's going to look good because of it. You literally have to ultimately give it away to other institutions that could also bring that data to the table. And you need to actually teach them how to do it. To give you a real life example of this, do you guys remember the Jack in the Box E. coli incident in the late 90s? Reno, you may not have been here then, but one of our fast food chains. So gross violations, people died, it was amazing. And so what did Jack in the Box do? They were like, okay, well, do we reinvent our way, or do we reinvent the way that the fast food industry works? And they figured it out, and it's to this day the standard kept in kitchens in fast food. And so that not only pulled them out, but it created a community of advocates to support their launch. Uber needs that, because the average consumer tolerates Uber. It doesn't love Uber. It's a solution I need. It's not a brand I love, you know? And so this is a way to be like, whoa, damn, Uber, Tom's one shoe, $2. That's what you're giving away. Look what Uber did. They completely reinvented a way for us to activate our lives, to unlock safety and give us community back.
Yeah, and just one last thing too, and Ken brought this up with like Gojek. We're taking a super app you see in Asia or different parts of China. This is kind of a super app, unlike individual apps. And a lot of places in the parts of the world, they don't have credit cards. They use all cash, and they don't have the ability, because we're basically a logistics company. We move A to B, merchant to customer, consumer, and then you're offering payment, mobile payment, and then transporting now like medicine, masks, different things to people to avoid, or your groceries or anything, mobility of things and people. So it's coming to be a platform much greater than just ride hailing, and that business has fundamentally changed forever. Right?
I just wanted to bring up, Reno, I really think you should look at what Safaricom did with the way they brought in their currency. So when you go to Kenya and you want to do anything, you have to buy the currency. Why do I forget what it is just now? But it literally is phone minutes that they use M-Pesa to buy everything. The entire economy runs off of M-Pesa, which is phone minutes, but it's a cryptocurrency or a digital currency. Imagine if you had to recharge your Uber, because you're right, Gojek is cash. It's amazing that it works. But if there's a way like phone minutes, you could actually fill it up, my Uber app in Indonesia or in Malaysia, and I could use it for other services. You become a currency in itself. Uber can do that.
Yeah, we actually do this in the Middle East, where people pay cash. It gets converted into their wallet and credits, and those credits or that wallet, a currency, then it's taking cash and converting it actually into credit, and then they can pay it on their mobile phone for whatever they want to do.
So smart.
So we do that now. We also, if a cab is carrying too much money, then he's high risk of being robbed. So we have to make sure that they go to the bank to do kind of a cash deposit, so it reduces the safety and risk for the taxi drivers.
Reno,
for the drivers.
Reno, I appreciate you hanging out here.
Let me give one thing that I think everyone will benefit from, just a reflection on Reno. Reno, you mentioned in your quick description just now that you're now like moving medicine on behalf of people. Everyone on the call, when you think about your CSR action, your corporate social action to look as if you care for the world, you can take something as simple as, oh, we deliver a medicine to an address once a month. That's part of our cadence. We didn't deliver it this month, or it wasn't queued up. Hey, notify. And so everyone can put a medicine or life-dependent mark or tick on the package or the situation, and you could be the one who helps notify that someone in the chain missed a link. And that's a benefit, again, that everyone would unlock. They would give it to you because that would save lives.
There you go.
That's great. Thank you, Sasha.
Reno, thank you so much. Guys, I'm going to go through these questions kind of quickly because there's a lot that are piling up. It just says a lot about you, Sasha. It's great. let's go over to, as people are popping in and out, Ramin, go for it. What's your question for Sasha, Ramin?
Hi, Sasha. Very nice meeting you. Very quickly, Sasha, we have a medical diagnostic company that requires patients to come. We do sleep disorder studies, so they have to come to our centers at night, spend the night. We had closed for a while and then reopened last week. Our volume is about 50% of what it was before, obviously because patients are nervous about coming in. I was just wondering about some feedback. How can we make our patients feel more comfortable? We've done all sorts of things, including PPE and getting people's temperatures before they walk in. So that's my question.
Yeah, I apologize. I just do not know enough about sleep disorder centers, but I can surmise some things, which is if I walk into a sleep disorder center anxious, whatever rating I'm going in to get treated at, whatever issue it's just going to be exacerbated. So I suspect that your number one priority must be managing anxiety. And that means a comfort path across the customer journey. That means from the minute they are booking on the phone, the way that the person speaks to them, the tone in which they use their words and welcome them to the sleep center, etc. So they don't feel like there's any fear. And when you talk about the cleanliness, you don't hit them with it. You say it things like, as you would suspect, to create maximum comfort, we've taken all of the healthcare protocols necessary. So be comforted understanding that. And so as you set a pattern of comforts, then they'll feel less anxiety ridden. And I want you to remember, Ramin, your customer, the next group of customers that you're trying to get back, because you're at 50%, the 50% you have right now are the ones you're going to get them back. So you should only be worrying about that 50%, because as soon as they start talking, telling, posting, oh, look how refreshed I am on my Instagram story, now you're back in business. So that would be my unqualified response to your question.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's go to Sanyika, Firestarter. Sanyika, your question for Sasha.
Hey, what's up, Sasha? How you doing, man? My question is in the, obviously for people who are transitioning out of the physical, transitioning back to the physical space, that's like one business, but what about people who are really capitalizing on the online space? So I do performance coaching. I have online coaching programs and education programs. I'm curious about your view on the marketplace for those types of programs and the best way from your perspective to capitalize.
No, you're muted, Sasha. It's great to see you go through that without hearing sound. All right. It looked like you actually needed to be medicated for a second there.
I do, always, yeah. So we're talking about businesses that were traditionally physical that have transitioned to digital, and is there an opportunity to capitalize in these online environments? Oh my gosh, so much. And not only so much, but you finally will have a reach of influence. It was so, before, to have a Sanyika experience, it needed to be within arm's reach or understood within a certain level. And there was something impactful about that. There's no doubt about that. But the problem was there was only so many lives that you can touch. Now you get to absolutely blare your light off in a whole range of directions. And that's where you need asynchronous and synchronous content. Content that, yes, is live and engaging and select, but you also need content that people can consume and morselize, reflect on, etc. But I want to give you two best practices, best shown actually at Metal, which is to get to the right answer for how to do this digital experience. You need cadence. So it's the content sequence. Remember I said earlier, having a 4-hour meeting doesn't work anymore. Well, I suspect 4-hour life coaching sessions don't work anymore. In fact, really, it's probably about 3 10-minute life coaching sessions, one in the morning today and one in the night tomorrow. And it's about the bookend that you absolutely apply. So cadence is one thing I want you to innovate on. I want you to originate a cadence. And I want it to be the Sanyika way, specifically because of what you believe about sleeping, eating, physical fitness, learning, all the stuff that make you who you are. And that unique recipe is going to become my behavior as your customer. It's going to help remind me what to do and not do. And if you can give me that cadence, you then can introduce me to your community. And that's the second thing that Metal does well, is it gets its people together. So it may not be part of your current business model, but I just want to remind you that Zoom breakouts of 3 to 5 people are like the gem of this crisis right now. And so easily you could host some, dyads or triads and get 4 people together. And because they're your community who is practicing your routine, they will reinforce your routine and they will do it without you having to be there.
Perfect. Love it. Just real quick, what is asynchronous and synchronous? What is that?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Stupid branding terms. You basically want to realize that there's stuff that you want people to do right now with you live. Let's just say that you and I were doing a coaching session. It's you and me, we're back and forth. You're live, I'm live, okay? But what about the wisdoms of Sanyika that deserve to be captured in video format or in, hey, Sasha, your assignment on Tuesdays is, perfect, great. I go get it and use it on my terms, out of sync.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Firestarter. Hey,
wait, I want to mention this really quickly. I watched a really cool seminar yesterday. It was specifically about doing things like we just described: mentoring, coaching, physical fitness, brand philosophizing in Second Life, parent rebirth. No. Okay, good. Let's discuss. Let's find out. I was pretty impressed by what you can do now, and I suspect, Sanyika, just in the sense of it being cutting edge and interesting, there may be a really interesting content channel.
Are you saying in Second Life you can do this?
Yes.
I didn't even know Second Life was still around.
Right. Not only Ken, you know what? For all the research you do and your peers, can you make that a topic for Metal? I think it's interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I'll go get him on their show. That's awesome. I'll go hunt him down.
Cool.
I went to Burning Man with him.
Great. All right.
Let me just go to Big Paul. Big Paul, you just had a comment. You just want to say your comment that you said in the chat?
Yeah, Sasha is just fucking amazing. That's period. Fucking amazing.
I just wanted to hear that sound. That's it. Let me go to. It's not. You know what? When you have somebody like that saying you're fucking amazing, you just need to embrace that, buddy. Just own it, okay? Go tell your kids. Big Paul said you're fucking amazing. Let me go to Brad. Brad.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, Sasha. Real quick, I do music for television productions. As you know, everything's closed down. People aren't producing. So how do I keep continuity and communicate with those clients without wasting their time, or, there's just nothing going on, but I don't want to just wait 6 months or a year. So how do I reach out to them or let them know I'm here without just bombarding them with useless, information or, bothering them?
Cool. Okay. Just making a note to myself. Cool, Brad. So thank you for referencing the points earlier, continuity and community. So I have a question. Are these people your friends? Are you connected to them in social channels, LinkedIn?
There's a few that I know that I have communicated with, just how you doing, how can I help, so forth. But a lot of them, are people who I've been prospecting or just trying to get meetings with. And, I don't know if I don't want to bug them for a meeting when there's nothing going on and they're just, working at home. I don't know how far to push it or not. I don't want to just be a pain in the ass either, but I want to.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants you to just remind them that you exist. I agree. You have to be bringing them value. Don't bother anyone right now if you're not. In fact, if you're going to send out an email marketing thing, there better be value in the email. I don't need to click anywhere, watch a video later. If I read it, I learned something.
I agree.
Okay.
You have to change our Metal announcements to do that. I'm being serious. You're right. Because I think too many things are just announcements and no value.
Yeah. And by the way, what am I going to do with an email that not only has a link to something external, but also has value in it? What am I going to do with it, everybody? I'm going to forward it.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it with people and show them the learnings that I'm in taking. But just really quickly, I want to make sure I got to the question from Brad. So what are you supposed to do right now? Technically, this is all unified here. So let's pretend our business right now, whether the courts are closed or the movie theaters are closed, right now there's this pause. What's the best use of your time? Well, I agree with Brad that we need to remind our customers that we exist, but how do we do it without annoying them? For the ones that are our friends that we can connect with on LinkedIn, connect with on Instagram, we're going to post in those channels only to remind them that we exist, but we're going to post value, insights, links, etc. Again, just to keep reminding them that we exist. But for potentials for a business that you're trying to develop, the only thing that they will consume from you right now is thought leadership. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. You can create a white paper, you can do a video blog, you can host a panel, you can get 3 interesting prospects in the writing business together, and you can do a dialogue with them. Now, whether or not your customer watches that happen is not the question. They see that you're putting on thought leadership, and that gets attached to you during this crisis bubble, so that after the crisis, they were like, who was the one who stayed on top of their shit during all this chaos? Oh, Brad, you did that workshop. I didn't see it, but I saw you did it. And that's the action that will give you the highest return in the short term.
Guys, I know we had a lot of other questions out there. I apologize we couldn't get to all of them, but Sasha's time is very tight. Sasha, thank you so much for giving us your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, and it's awesome to have you part of our community.
Hey, friends, thanks
everyone,
for the time.
Unmute yourself and let's all thank Sasha. Come on, unmute yourself. Everyone.
Sasha, you're the best.
Thanks, Sasha.